I think we are good to go with the recording. Right before we get started, I do want to outline what the FEC is and what Parent University is. The Family Engagement Center, the FEC, is designed to be an inviting space for parents and volunteers, kind of a one-stop shop for different resources and manipulatives that teachers and students and families can use. And it's also an office to help encourage family and volunteer participation with Oconee County Elementary School. There are lots of ways the FEC is designed to help families and their students, and one of the ways we're doing that is by the Parent University, right? So the Parent University, it's not new to the school this year, but this is our first meeting of the semester. The main goals of Parent University is to kind of introduce parents and families to specific helps and resources that are immediately applicable to the student and what the student is learning, and creating, again, that strong, encouraging learning environment at the home. We have another event planned in January. This one's focused on Title I, like what exactly it is and what kind of resources are bundled in with Title I funding. But if you have any kind of suggestions or specific information that you would like to see from Parent University, I do have a survey set up and there is some free response in there. So if you want to go in and give us your thoughts, I would love to hear it. The link is in this presentation, which I will send as a follow-up email, but it's also going to be in the description of the video once I post it. So y'all will be able to see that. An outline of the presentation today, we're going to start with Ms. Embry. She's going to talk about developing lifelong readers. Then we're going to move on to Dr. Sewell, who's going to speak on parent involvement. Then I am going to present Ms. Newman's material on different resources that are available to the student and to the families. And then Ms. Dean is going to wrap us up with ESOL and cultural diversity resources. So after that, not brief introduction, I will turn it over to Ms. Embry now.
Okay, sorry. Good morning. Just a quick introduction. I do teach 5th grade reading, and my part today, how to develop lifelong readers, is really centered around the conversations that I've had over my 20 years of teaching experience with parents, their questions, their wonderings, and then also other teachers that I help kind of get their thinking on how can we make better readers, and really what is our goal. It's not just for testing purposes, but for creating those lifelong readers. So I do have some notes that I'm going to kind of look back at from time to time because this is something I'm passionate about and I can wonder on and on. So I'm just going to try to go by our presentation, but then if you have questions at the end, I'll be glad to answer them. When we talk about a student's positive reading identity, we're really thinking about getting children to see themselves as readers, to love to read, to have those opportunities in school to be successful with their reading. And one of the things that I love to do is in my free time is to research. I am not a researcher, but I do read lots of books, blogs, and white papers that kind of continue the research on creating better readers. And one of the tools that I love to use is the National Assessment for Educational Progress. And they really report that lifelong reading habits and abilities of readers are fostered, first of all, through the family, the home. And then those ideas and commitments are solidified through our other systems like the school. So I can't understate the importance of parent support and creating that reading community at home, because it really is the groundwork for us doing that same work here at school. Thinking about how do we set up those expectations, to help our readers become those lifelong readers and learners that we desire, is really setting up a time each day for reading to be valued in the home. That's one of the easiest ways to show the importance, to model what you're reading, and have that expectation for your student to continue to read daily. It's that non-negotiable daily reading expectations that really set the importance and dedication and then sustain that growth for your reader. Young readers are oftentimes left feeling maybe unempowered by their reading goals, and to put the kid back first and foremost in that reading goal, those conversations that you have with your child, for them to take ownership of that reading time and also what they're reading. Those kinds of encounters that they have with parents is so important, because you get to know your student as a reader. What do they desire to read? Are they truly engaged with what they're reading? Just to pause and have conversations about what they're reading. So setting that time aside, having those conversations, modeling with your student, discussions about what you're reading, if it's appropriate, and that kind of thing. So when we think about all of those opportunities, they can happen truly quickly, but they're so valuable. And so what I recommend for parents each day is 20 to 25 minutes of that sustained reading time, and a quick conversation about what they're reading. One of the questions that comes up all the time is, yes, my student is sitting there reading, but when I ask him or her about what they've read, they might not have either the words to share what they've read, or B, they're not attending to what they've read. So when we set that goal of having those conversations daily, it tends to help kids know that the conversation is coming, to be focused on what they're reading. And then also, how do we start to talk about books? And so out of that comes the language of the standard, like characters and conflict, and those words that the kids need to know to be successful readers in the classroom. One of the things that parents have oftentimes asked me about will be book choice. How do I encourage kids to choose good books for them? What are the good books for them? And one of the researchers that I really enjoy and kind of follow his process of thought on this is Kelly Gallagher. And he explains that selection choice allows students to start valuing their decision making. It helps them to grow confident that they can be successful in both their book choices and their reading. And it gives them that overall sense of encouragement that that they can do this, that their selections are valued, and it doesn't have to go with what the norm, maybe everybody else in the class is reading, but to really truly think to themselves, what do I enjoy reading? What authors do I like? And then make those selections from there. To start that conversation as a parent, and as a teacher, I oftentimes ask the kids, like, well, what genre do you like to read? Do you like historical fiction? Do you like science fiction? Is it nonfiction? And start there, and then have that student keep a list, a plan of what to read next. That gives them a sense of they always have direction. Now, they don't have to always adhere to that plan, but it creates that sense of, again, accomplishment and ownership, and they know where to go once that book is finished. Another researcher that I like is Donna Lynn Miller, and she really points out that readers without the availability of choice in their reading materials, they're oftentimes unmotivated. And I know I'm older than most people on here, but coming through school, I didn't have a lot of choice in what I could read. It was assigned to me, and I totally buy into that theory. There is, a great value in a class reading a book together, but that independent choice is what's going to draw that student back to the love of reading, back to wanting to read, wanting to research, wanting to know more about a topic. So again, it can't be understated, the power of choice. When we think about those commitment plans that kids make, I oftentimes ask them, what kind of books do you like to read? And start with that. And then the question that I get from parents is, well, what if they get stuck on that one kind of book? And oftentimes they do for a while, and that's okay, because when they're stuck on a certain genre or a certain style or even a certain author, they're building up their commitment to their plan, to their reading action plan, but they're also building up confidence. They can predict, oftentimes, like in series books, and this is one of my kids' favorites. They love The Land of Stories. They can predict the storyline. They have familiarity with the character, the conflict, and they'll oftentimes choose book one and then just continue right on through the whole series. So finding a series that they like, it's okay. They're building that confidence. Another question is, well, they only like one author, and that's okay too. Slowly, once they read all of those authors' books, they can continue on to their next favorite author. And truth be told, I do that too. If I find an author that I love, I'll go back and try to dive into every single book that person has put out, and even look for new ones. I'm on the waiting list for the one I'm going to share with you. So a lot of my kids who are reluctant readers will start with an author like Alan Gratz, and they'll read every one of his books. And so I'm on the waiting list for his new one, which is about 9/11. I can't wait. So again, if they're choosing the same author, they're familiar with the writing style, they build that confidence in reading. The last question that comes up when we're talking about book selection is graphic novels. And there's a lot of theory behind that. I know I have explicitly explained some of the thought processes behind the graphic novels and the information that will be linked in this presentation. Graphic novels are not poor choices. Some people consider them light reading, but honestly, if a student is comfortable beginning there and building again that confidence, that autonomy and choice, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck. And the latest graphic novels are not necessarily in the category with Diary of a Wimpy Kid. There's nothing wrong with Diary of a Wimpy Kid, but I realize that parents do want a more sophisticated storyline for their reader to get them to move along. But there are very good graphic novels. This one is about World War II and Japanese internment, where it's actually a nonfiction book, and it gets the readers to think. But again, they see it as sometimes a graphic novel and very much accomplishable. And so they'll take this particular task on. Or this is the Newbery book from last year. This one's called New Kid, and it's the first Newbery book that was a graphic novel, a winner. And so again, a very complex storyline in here because he is the only student of color in his new school. And so while the kids see this as, well, it's a graphic novel, I'm used to Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I'm used to the other diary books, they are more willing to tackle this with a more sophisticated storyline because it's something that's familiar to them. So again, when parents say, oh, they only want to read something in a series or by a certain author or graphic novels, start there with modeling and conversation. Let them build their confidence and slowly start to explore. So that brings me to my last couple of points. I'm trying to be very succinct today. But when we talk about book selection, another question that comes up too is, do I have to stick with my students' reported reading level? That's a very sticky situation. And for me, I did include some research on that in the link that will be provided. But just from my experience, it's a great place to start. We don't want our students to be overwhelmed choosing books that are well beyond their capabilities. However, one example that I'd like to share with you is the 2016 Newbery winner, which was The Girl Who Drank the Moon. And depending on what reading leveling system you're using, it's from a 3rd grade level to a 7th grade level. And honestly, because of the algorithms they use, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. But those leveling systems don't account for student interest or how motivated they are to get through the text. So I hesitate to say that if something's over their reading level or under their reading level to, not allow that selection choice. Because oftentimes we can see a student get through a text that we thought, that was challenging for you, but because they're motivated and interested, they can do that. And then just because it's below level doesn't mean it's not of value, especially if the student is motivated to read it and is of high interest level. So start with the reading levels. Yes, they matter, but it doesn't have to be something that we negate choices on, if that makes sense. So I think that along with thinking about how we can encourage our readers, How do we feel about series and authors and reading levels, helping parents feel confident about helping students make choices. And that's exactly what I say to other teachers when I'm helping them as well. You know, helping those students feel comfortable and confident is the most important thing. The last question I get, I promise this is the last one, is all about the classics. You know, I've had lots of parents ask me, you know, should I have my students who are reading at grade level and beyond read the classics? And that's truly a personal choice. But just from an educator's perspective on this, the classics have value, of course. But remember, they're dealing with settings that are in different societal times. And oftentimes the author has nuances to the storyline that have to do with a lot of life experiences or human interactions that many young kids haven't had yet. And so they miss a lot of the nuances. So when a parent is wanting a student to read, let's say, Lord of the Flies early, there's a lot that students will miss just because they don't have that background knowledge to kind of bring to the story. So yes, if you want to read it now, but I hope they will return to it later as they get older and experience life. And even the second reading may be more valuable once they have kind of something to hang that literature hat on. One thing, if you're looking for diversity and you're wanting something to challenge your students in thought and in their reading selections, and maybe you want to wait on the classics, it's just thinking about books that really students can look at and see a mirror. They can see themselves in the character, they can see themselves in the storyline, or even a window, a peek into another world, a peek into a setting of cultural diversity, of a student who is going through maybe the conflict in the book is something that's a hot topic for current issues. So that's a great way to stretch a reader. And usually those particular kinds of books can be set more on their reading level and they'll pick up on those nuances. So just a suggestion, the classics aren't terrible, but oftentimes the writing is lost on the very young. But if you have questions for me that I didn't answer, I know that was super fast, I'll be glad to answer. And then there's all of this information in the link provided.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you, Miss Embry. Yeah, the information that she's referring to is it covers the same talking points as what you talked about, but a much more in depth. And I'll be sending that out as part of a larger sort of resource packet for everybody, the current viewers, and the viewers in the future. So just keep an eye out for that. Next up, I believe, is who's up next?
I am.
This is, yes, Dr. Sewell. Okay,
Yes.
our school counselor, talking on
Hi.
parent involvement. Take it away.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Cheryl Sewell, and I'm the school counselor here. And just so you know, I have a 2.5 and a 4-year-old, 4.5 daughters. And so I am in the early stages of building my readers. And so this topic is of particular interest. And everything that Ms. Embry shared, I'm nodding and I'm agreeing to, because I'm seeing it even as early as 2 and 4. But let's jump in and just talk about how parents can be involved in building better readers. And actually, a lot of what I might share kind of further describe some of the points that Ms. Embry has already shared. But first off, the American Academy of Pediatrics reported that parents reading with their children can be a very personal and nurturing experience. And as a result, they have built in early literacy guidance into their practice when pediatricians meet with parents for well visits, because reading with your children is that impactful. So reading with your children helps to promote the parent and child interaction. It helps with the acquisition of language, vocabulary, and literacy skills. It enhances the social and emotional development, boosts early brain and child development, and also assists in developing school readiness skills. So there are a lot of benefits of reading with your children. So one of the things that's most important is the interaction and the connection between the parent and the child. And what reading does is it kind of forces us to have to attend and engage and interact with our child without some of the other distractions that typically pull us away, such as the tasking of chores, or the screens that are always in front of us. The shared experience of reading with your child creates these feelings of intimacy. It creates feelings of pleasure, which then promotes more positive attitudes towards reading. Um, Reading with your children can also enhance communication between you and your child. Reading offers opportunities to discuss connections between the books and your lives, and even asking questions like, well, how did you feel about that? Or have you had a similar experience? Will allow you to engage in conversation that you may not ordinarily have. And it allows you to get to know your child in maybe some new ways. So I have a 4-year-old who takes ballet classes, and when I talk about what did you do in ballet? Did you learn any new fancy moves? She can't tell me a whole lot. But one of her favorite books right now is Ella Bella Ballerina and Swan Lake. And so when we read that book and she sees the music notes in the picture, she goes, oh, that means that they're hearing the music and dancing to it. And so that's my opportunity to find out a little bit more about what they've been doing in ballet class. So that's just an example of how you can connect the book to the real world. Reading with your child helps to develop spelling, vocabulary, and grammar skills, which are all positively connected to their achievement in school, their ability to write, and their ability to articulate different thoughts and ideas. And the more your child reads, the more your child hears reading, the larger the vocabulary becomes. And they're better able to communicate more efficiently and effectively. Another really fun thing about reading with your children is the opportunity to enhance their social and emotional development. Reading books together can help your children learn about relationships between people, to learn and maybe even explore or try new coping strategies, helps to build their self-esteem and acquire just general world knowledge, which is something Miss Embry talked about a little bit. So also reading, understanding characters helps to build empathy and perspective taking, and reading can be a mirror into your own child's life, and like you said, a window into the world. It's so much aligned. I'm looking through my notes. And books also teach us about relationships, societal situations, personality types. Books can be a way of introducing new experiences or unfamiliar situations to our children when they're approaching a new stage of life. Reading a story that has a relevant storyline can kind of be a way of introducing this experience and can allow them to cope a little bit more with the anxiety that might come with something that's new. Some examples might be a move or starting a new school or some kind of change in a family dynamic. Finding a book that has maybe a similar storyline is a non-threatening way of approaching the issue and allowing the child to kind of explore those ideas within the safety of a book and it not really having to be about the child. And so doing that together is a great way to prep your child for some challenges or changes that might occur in life. Okay, moving on. So also with brain and child development, one thing that I found interesting in a 2019 study was that MRI images of children's brains showed that taking screens away and reading to children younger than 5 boost brain development. And so I think that speaks to it's never too early to begin reading to your children. I don't have this noted, but and so I can't cite the source right now, but there is lots of research that talks about children who are read too early and the vocabulary that they have entering into school and the correlation between those students and their school achievement over time. So it's never too early to start reading with our children. And one study that was published in the Perspectives on Psychology Psychological Science in 2013 found that reading to a child in an interactive style could raise an IQ by over 6 points. So I think that just highlights again the benefits of reading with children. School readiness skills are developed when we read with students. From the very early, students learn that, or children learn that letters form words and words form sentences and sentences communicate a thought or an idea, and that we read in a book from left to right and pages turn in this direction. So all of those are skills, and those are things that need to be taught that a lot of times we just kind of take for granted. But reading with your child at early ages kind of reinforces those skills. Reading with your children also helps to develop stamina for paying attention and for being able to concentrate for longer periods of time. It builds listening skills. It helps to develop, imagination, critical thinking skills, because all of these things are modeled within the books. So all of this sounds amazing, but how do you do this at home, right? And Ms. Embry touched on this a little bit, but two big things about reading with your children at home is to, one, model it. If we want children to value reading and to love reading, they must see that we value reading and that we love reading. So let them see you with books. Let them know that reading is a fun part of life. Carry books with you. It's really easy, especially for me, to listen to audiobooks when I'm in the car, or, if I'm doing something that's kind of mindless. But letting them see you with the book, and letting your children know that you are reading and I'm finding joy and pleasure in this. They want to be like you. Our children look up to us, and they want to do what we do. So letting them see you with those books. Bring books with you. Keep them in the car. So when you go to a doctor's appointment, hey, let's read this book while we wait. When there's downtime, hey, today let's put the tablets away and let's all sit around and read our books together. What did you read about today? On long car trips. So modeling and letting the children see that you love reading. Keeping your books in a place that the children can access independently. They're more prone to grab them when they see the opportunity. And then lastly, just really making it fun. So when children read because it's a chore or it's a duty or they're forced, it takes the joy out of it. And a little bit of transparency on my end, I never really liked reading. I would not identify myself as a reader. And 13 years ago, I was in a professional learning meeting, and someone asked what I was reading lately. And I was like, oh, I don't like to read. And they said, how are you in education and you don't like to read? And that just kind of stung me a little bit. And it just so happened that that weekend, a friend of mine was coming to visit, and she wanted to go to Barnes & Nobles. And I said, sure, fine. So I found this book, and I said, okay. I read that entire book cover to cover in one weekend because I enjoyed it. I liked the mystery aspect of the story. I liked the way the author told the story. And it was at that moment that I realized, hey, I actually do like reading. I just need to be able to read things that I like. Mm-hmm. And so making reading enjoyable is going to be the game changer for building better readers. Share books that reflect your child's personal interests, because reading needs to be pleasurable and enjoyable. I want to make sure I don't talk too much about what Ms. Embry already talked about. So it's not only about the reading, but it's the experience and the emotional connection that happens during reading. And so, consider what kind of reader you are as a parent when you're reading with your child. Are you a describer? Are you the type of reader that points out the interesting facts and makes the connections to the real world, or describe the pictures that might be present? Or are you perhaps a performer? Do you act out and perform the story as you're reading it? That's more of what I kind of do. But engage your child, have your child be an active participant in the reading. And Ms. Embry already hit on the kind of getting stuck on a particular type of book. That's great, because it shows that they're obtaining pleasure from reading. They're getting the most out of the book, but don't be afraid to offer, a variety of style of books to see what they might find enjoyable. Okay, so in closing, one pediatrician noted that reading to a child and reading with a child can be a very joyous event, and it's one way of fostering a strong relationship, and we should make it all a part of our regular routine. Thank you for allowing me to speak this morning, and I'm going to pass the baton back to Mr. Lockman.
right. Thank you so much. Yeah, that was great. And I'm going to do my best to follow up with these resources that our Media Center specialist, Miss Newman, has so graciously gathered together. It's 17 different resources that I think will help connect parents and families to the kind of books that we're talking about, books that are relevant to the child, books that give the child choice in what they read. Books that are engaging, cover a range of topics, cover, interests that they are already interested in, as well as some tools for parents to actually go in and kind of scope out, a new series or a new author or a new subject that maybe they're not familiar with, before their child actually gets into the reading. So this is a kind of a grid of all the resources that Ms. Newman put together, and I'm just going to run through them pretty quickly so that we've got time for the Q&A after this. So the first up is the Georgia Children's Book Awards. That's established by UGA, and it's voted on by literacy, reading, and librarian professionals all around Georgia. The winners are separated by grade level, and there's some really great books that have been awarded in the past. Next up, the American Library Association. It's a collective of librarians and information services professionals who put out yearly awards. The ALA, from what I understand, also oversees the Newbery Awards and other prominent children's book awards. Mensa for kids, if you guys are familiar with Mensa for adults, I guess there's a kids version as well. They offer an international excellence in reading program to K-12 students. Students basically select books from a grade level list of fiction and nonfiction. They then track their reading progress and then earn a certificate afterward. They are really, really great book lists, whether or not your student or your reader is actually a part of Mensa for Kids. There's some really good quality literature contained in the list, according to Ms. Newman. Common Sense Media, it's one of those parent tools that I was talking about before. It's a website that helps families find age-appropriate media, not just books, but also like movies and TV shows. It contains information related to digital citizenship, distance learning, age-appropriate lists of music, games, books, websites, even more kind of media like that. It's a great parent guide, especially if you're wanting, like I said before, to kind of check out, a new author or a new series before their reader actually gets into it. The link that's in this presentation goes to a listicle, 50 books that all kids should read before they are 12. Up next is the Children's Book Council. That provides a variety of curated reading lists from a range of subjects, right? The Children's Choice List, Miss Newman lists as one of her favorites. Books from this list are newly published titles, and they are read and chosen. I thought this was really interesting. The books in this list are read and chosen by K through 6 students. So it's not just librarians and teachers that are voting on these. Up next, the National Council of Teachers of English focuses on nonfiction resources for children, as opposed to a lot of the fiction that you'll see in some of these other lists. The National Science Teachers Association offers a list of outstanding science trade books, as well as links to activities related to each selection. So not just the books, not just the resources, but also activities related to what those books cover. The group also puts together a list called the Best STEM Books, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. It's a list of trade books related to those subjects. Up next is the Young Adult Library Services Association. It's for a slightly older crowd. It's a database of books for students that are anywhere between 12 years old and 18 years old. Ms. Newman says that because the lists include titles with a broad range of reading and maturity levels, again, like the oldest level would be 18, it is suggested that adults do take a more active role in the selection process if you're using the YA Library Services Association. Up next, we've got a couple of ebook and audiobook resources. Ebooks are, I really prefer ebooks sometimes because they're a lot more portable, and I can just kind of pick it up whenever I've got some time, because like I always have my phone with me, but I don't always have a paperback or hardback that I'm carrying around. Audiobooks especially, I think we talked about it before, when you're in the car, when you're with your own readers, using some of that downtime, I guess, like when you're in the car, when you're cooking, when you're cleaning, listening to an audiobook is a great option. The audiobook and ebook resources that Ms. Newman has here are Fall at Destiny, which is an online catalog that students use to search for library media center books. And these are available to check out at Oconee County Elementary School. Especially interesting is that titles in other Oconee County schools can be viewed, right? So they're not limited to just the library here at the elementary school. Students would have to log in with their Google credentials and then are able to search for books. The next resource up is called Sora, S-O-R-A. It allows students to borrow ebooks and audiobooks. Soon, it's planned that Sora will connect students with the local public library connection, which will provide even more age-appropriate digital reading materials for students. Students, again, will use their Google login to access Sora. Up next is Galileo. It's Georgia's virtual library. It's an online library portal available to a wide range of Georgia educational institutions. Like I know UGA uses it and a lot of other colleges. Galileo has full-text articles, ebooks, periodicals, encyclopedias, educational videos, and other nonfiction sort of research sources that are really good for research papers and other similar projects. If you're interested in that, I would definitely contact Ms. Newman for login credentials so that she can get you in there. We've also got the public library, right? Athens Regional and the Pine System is part of the Georgia Public Library System. The Watkinsville and Bogart libraries are also part of this system. The local libraries offer a wide variety of activities for digital and print resources, including access to a statewide online catalog. The Pines link in this presentation is a direct link to the kids catalog homepage. So Pines has done a really great job of kind of curating children-specific resources and books. And eventually, students will be able to access this online catalog through Sora. So Sora, the resource we were talking about earlier, will eventually be kind of married with the library system. Up next is Tumble Books. It's right here. Is a database of elementary ebooks. There are over 1,100 titles available. And it's a huge range of stuff. National Geographic videos, nonfiction books, graphic novels, books in French and Spanish, playlists, puzzles, games. Tumble Books can be accessed directly from the OCES website under the academics or student drop-down menus. Next up is called Epic with an exclamation mark. It provides families and classrooms with unlimited access to quality ebooks and videos. Parents can sign up for 30 free days, but students here have unlimited access to it as long as they're logged in with their Google accounts. The International Children's Digital Library has a focus on world literature. Various cultures and languages can be found within the collection in an effort to teach readers tolerance and respect and kind of introduce them to cultures that are outside of stuff that they might be seeing in other library systems. And Miss Newman, I was really glad she included this, but they are text level tools, right? So not necessarily libraries, but tools that help parents and students and families find specific books based on reading levels. So the first one is called Lexile Find a Book. It's a browser tool that allows you to search for books within a student's Lexile range. If you're curious on that, it's attached to the student's map results. And if you contact your teachers or Miss Newman, I'm sure that they'd be able to connect you with that. And last, but definitely not least, is the Scholastic Book Wizard. It's a database from Scholastic for parents, teachers, and students to locate what they call good fit books. Users can search by author, title, keyword, genre, reading level system, whether their student is measured by the guided reading level, DRA, Lexile measure, grade level equivalent. If you're looking for, if you're trying to start your search based on grade level, then the Lexile Find a Book and the Scholastic Book Wizard are really good resources as well. So that is all the stuff that Miss Newman got together, and hopefully I've presented it well. If I didn't, you have Miss Newman's contact information at the end of this presentation. Yeah, okay, I'm going to hand it off to Miss Dean, and then we will move on to the Q&A.
Okay, good morning. My name is Lydia Dean, and I am the ESOL teacher here, which is English speakers of other languages. I've also taught 4th and 5th grade reading and language arts previously, so I have a good background in literature. here at our school, working with the ESOL population, it's really important that we not only help the students learning how to read, but also embrace their culture and the things that they bring to school, because that's going to help them be a better reader when they can make those connections. So when a student comes in from another country, a lot of times they can read really well in whatever language they speak, but obviously not in English. So one thing that we do have available in our media center that's very helpful is we have books available in multiple languages. And so if a fifth grader comes in and they speak Spanish, they can read a chapter book in Spanish, but not in English. And so sometimes when we give them books that they would be able to read in English, they're kind of baby books and make them feel a little uncomfortable and feel like everybody's looking at them. So we like to be able to offer those in the library, and Miss Newman works on building that library as well. But those are available here at our school for students. And, obviously a good resource to take home and read with parents that also speak that language. It's a good opportunity. As I was listening to Dr. Sewell talk, as a parent, you look at it a little bit differently than you do as a teacher sometimes. And I have an infant, but we read to him all the time, and already since he was born, and let him play with books and things like that. So I think it's really important to still have that connection with parents. And so as a school, if we can provide that opportunity for parents that don't speak English to still read with their children, I think that that's really valuable in building those relationships as well. And then often what happens is as the student starts to learn English, that starts to transfer as they try to help their parents learn it as well, which is another great opportunity. One thing that we were able to do last year here at our school was come up with a resource of multicultural literature. And the goal of that was to help some of our students connect their literature to their culture, in hopes to get them reading on a higher reading level, also just the things that they were interested in, and make those connections. And so Ms. Newman and Ms. Embry and I really worked to create a library, a small library in and of itself, of these books that had multicultural connections. So we have all the different languages or cultures represented in our school. We kind of took those and found different books that made that connection on all 3 grade levels. And it's available for teachers to check out as far as small groups, but also available for students specifically. I know even this year, it's been really successful. I've had several students that we've been able to, one in Miss Embry's class, that they were talking about a book she was sharing that had the same culture that child is from, and she saw an interest there. She could tell he got really excited. And so I was able to share some of the books from that library with the child. And he was just really, really excited that there was a book out there about something that he could make a connection to that the rest of us can't if we haven't experienced that. And even in addition to that, I do think for kids that were born in the United States and have always lived here and maybe not traveled, it's still a great opportunity for them to read it as well, because it's exposing them to other cultures and what life is like other places, and different values and ways of doing things. So it's really neat to be able to have that here at our school for all of our students. We've just seen a really, really positive connection for our students culturally by using that. The last thing that I wanted to talk about was just some community resources for learning English. A lot of times parents ask about this when their kids are at school, because again, they want to be able to communicate with their children in English as well. And while we always want to value their home language and their home culture, we also have to teach them how to communicate in English for schooling. And so sometimes parents feel a little out of the loop when they don't speak English as well. And it's important for them to be able to communicate. So our community offers some great resources for learning English. And I know Mr. Loftman is going to share with you this in a document, but there's 2 churches in the local area that provide free language classes, specifically English, and they're free. and you just have to register. And I think there's like a textbook fee, maybe $20. But it's a great opportunity. Also builds community among those that are learning English. We have a lot of families in our school that participate in these because they're here from China and working with the University of Georgia. And so it kind of builds a really good community for them to go and learn together. And then they get to meet other people that are doing the same thing. And it's a great opportunity to build those relationships. So I think that's all.
Mm-hmm. Great. That's excellent. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, like I said, and we mentioned it already, so just to say it again, I will be sending out a resource packet with kind of more long form information that's going to be sent and linked as well to the video description when that's posted. I'll also be putting it on the FEC website. The short link is oconioschools.org/OCES-FEC. I also encourage you to keep an eye on the events tab, because as more parent university sessions open up, I'll be posting about it on there as well. So that's a good place to go if you're interested in the parent university. And now I am going to end the recording and open up to a Q&A. These are 2 questions that were submitted via the Google form. But if we have any more questions that need to be addressed, we can definitely do that. So let me stop the recording, and I will get moving.